I have a short a sort of presentation on my creative journey, and not just the journey, but also about the process that I use. So when Ashu sort of came to me and said, "You talk about your journey," it was a good sort of I think for me also it was good because it helped me take stock of where I have reached and where I had started from. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you can take away something from it. If you have any questions, we'll keep them in the end, because it's better for me to answer it at the end. And I'll just take you through some of the slides. So the first is a little bit about me. And I think Ashu has said a bit about me, but let me tell you a little more about me, because I'm right now in London, but I was born and brought up in India. I'm from Delhi. I have studied all my life in management, completely different from what I am doing right now. So
Please mute yourselves, guys. Make sure you're muted. I can hear some background noise. Sorry about that, Anjali.
that's okay. I could hear nice music though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
so so I have actually, I'm an economics graduate. I have done my MBA, as Ashu said, and after that I have actually I joined the corporate world, and for about 10 years I worked in a corporate job. So I have worked in marketing, as something a lot of you might be hoping to do. Not to dissuade anybody, but yes, I did change from marketing into art. So how did that happen is where what I'd like to talk about and then take you through it. So what made me change this path? And I think a lot of people will have that question. One of the things was that when I started my MBA, and I was very sure I wanted to do an MBA, I wanted to do marketing, I wanted a corporate job. It was very clear to me. I was one of those kids who were like, this is it, I want an office job and everything like that. And when I started, I joined a company, I got a lovely office, I got my own cubicle, I got to work on a great brand, and I actually got the opportunity to work on a launch of a brand. And I think that's something that rarely comes across in a lot of people's career, at least in the beginning. And I got it all. And honestly, after 1 year of that, I just thought to myself, now what? And that feeling of there was not, it wasn't exciting me enough to want to pursue it more. However, as I mean, I'm sure you would all also agree, I put in so much into getting that job that obviously I didn't want to leave the corporate world that fast. So I stuck on for 10 years. I tried my hand at different companies. I worked in American Express, I worked in O2, Godrej, to name a few. And I realized slowly and slowly that one of the things which was happening was work was not giving me any joy. It was just as simple as that. And the illustration I've used here is more about, I felt like I was going around in circles doing the same thing, and I was just not happy. So it was just not what I wanted to do. The second thing that happened was a happier thing, which was motherhood. And I had a child, and suddenly your priorities change. You also start taking stock of your life, and you start wondering that, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? Which was a good thing for me, because I needed that stop to reassess that I've spent 10 years in the corporate world. Now, should I look at something else? And the third thing that happened to me was a country change. So I was in Singapore at that time, and I left and I moved to Korea, South Korea, in Seoul. Again, very different. It was completely from being in an English speaking country to a non English speaking country. I could not get a job. Even if I tried to in the corporate world, it was difficult. So again, maybe it happened for the best, because again, it helped me take stock and say that, it's not the corporate world. What is it that I'd like to do? And I started drawing and painting. And this was one of the things which I always did as a child, but never thought of doing it seriously. It was a hobby. And I just showed some of my work in an exhibition in Singapore, and I sold. And suddenly, from just being a hobby, there was a realization that maybe there is something more to it. And that's where the career path actually happened. So there were a few things. It was not just one thing or some epiphany. It was a few things that happened which helped me make that move. Now, uh, there are some learnings. I mean, there are obviously many learnings, but there are some which just jump up at me, and I thought I would share them with you because I think that'll help you also in what you are pursuing. Not necessarily with the change of path, but just with your career and with life in general. So one of the things I thought I'd talk about is something which everybody hears about and they talk about, which is fake it till you make it. And I thought it was a bit negative connotation, so I changed it to be it till you become it. So, and what does that mean? And I will take my example. So, the illustration I've used is you can see there's a deer, and I'm trying to say you may feel like a deer, but you have to feel like a lion or pretend to be like a lion. And why I say that is that if lion is what you want to be, so in my case, for example, I wanted to be an artist, but I started in a space where I was completely um, from a completely different background, from a corporate world. So how do I become an artist? So the first thing for me was to really start believing in the fact that I can be an artist, and that's the first step to anything. So for example, in the corporate world, you always introduce yourself. I'm a marketing manager, I'm a director. Here I had to introduce myself and say I'm an artist, and I had to believe that I actually believe I'm an artist. So it's tough, but you have to believe it, because that is the first step to actually being able to sort of move on to something that you want. And you self belief therefore is very important. So for me, and at the same time, it's not as if I'm saying, oh, just because I say I'm an artist, I'm an artist. No, what happens is you start getting the confidence. Second is you're also at the same time improving your skills. So I am constantly learning. I'm constantly taking courses which are art related. Every country that I've been in, I have learned a traditional art form in that country. So in Korea, I learned the traditional art form. And what happens if you have that attitude is, and which happened to me, is I got a solo show in the first year of me deciding to do this. Now, when it was offered to me, my immediate reaction was, but I've just started. How can I even do a solo show? I'm not a real artist. That was my immediate reaction. But what this attitude gave me was, no, what I need to think is I am an artist. I have become an artist, and I'm being given the opportunity to do a solo show, which I took, and it went very well. It was in Thailand, it was in Bangkok. I got really good response. I got an article in a magazine. So it was just that sort of initial hindrance that I was putting on myself. I mean, people were ready to accept me. It was me who was like, oh, maybe not, I've just started. So therefore, I say, be it till you become it. And thankfully, I think 8 years down the line, I have the confidence to say, yes, I'm an artist, and I do feel like an artist now. So it has come to that stage. It takes a while, yes, but it does come. So that's the first one. And in fact, these artworks that you see are from my first show. This was the first show that I did in Thailand. The other one is, you are your original. And this is something, again, I think people, even for you in management, something we all always struggle with, because we are always wanting to come up with something new, something original. And what that does is, you're assuming that everything that needs to be created has to be this original new thing, which you're setting yourself on very high standards. You've already in a way lost the battle. What you're doing is, even if you look at, again, all examples of mine would be very art related, so bear with me. Like, when you learn traditional art, how do they teach traditional art? You copy the masters. That's how you learn. So in anything, the first assumption is that we all start with the leaning of something that inspires us, or something that we have looked at and liked and learned from that, and use that in our work. So I'm not propagating we copy everything, because That's not how we are supposed, I mean, that's not what we're meant to do. But we can lean on certain ideas or designs, and we can incorporate that, because finally it will be you, because you are doing it. It will be unique to you. You will never be a copy, because you are original as a person. So that's the other belief that you have to have. When I started, it was very Madhubani. I leaned on the Madhubani style of work. So I saw there some people here from different parts of the world. They'll know Madhubani is an art form, a local folk art form, and I leaned on it. I looked at that as inspiration. And this artwork, again, this is something you will look at and you say, yeah, I can see a little bit of Madhubani inspiration there. But now I can say, now if you look at my artwork, you will be able to say that, yes, now I have my own vocabulary, my own unique language, because at the end of the day, you have your own voice. So that's the other assumption. Don't set yourself up so high and say, I have to come up with something really new and original. No, it's all right. Start, and then you'll get there eventually. The third one is, uh, competition is good for you. So I'm sure you hear that a lot in management. But in my case, I'm going to break it down very, very basic, which is, I started as a person who felt completely out of this art field. I felt I was an outsider. I felt um, ill equipped. And one of the things that I used was Instagram. Everybody's on Instagram these days. You all will understand what happens to us on Instagram. We are all day scrolling and looking at other people and thinking, oh my god, they're getting to do this, they're getting to do that, everybody is having has such a wonderful life. But what you need to take away from that is, one is, it's good if anybody else is succeeding out there. That's good for you. That means there's an opportunity. So what I stopped doing from seeing, oh, these people are so good, I'm not really that good, is saying that no, if they're good, I'm going to try to be better. Second is, if they are good and they, for example, have got a show, that means people are showing. That means art is still present. That means there is an opportunity for me. And this generation, Instagram is everything for you, right? I mean, everything goes on to Instagram. So please bear that, because even from a mental well-being point of view, I think it really helps to understand that it's okay if somebody else is doing well. It is a good thing, because that means there is opportunity out there for all of us to do better, and we just have to strive towards that. So those were my top three. I mean, there's so many other learnings, but I didn't want to just keep on going on and on. So therefore, these are my top three learnings. And what I'd like to now do is talk a little bit about my creative process. So again, when Ashu came to me and said, oh, talk about your creative process, I was thinking to myself, there is no process. And again, that first question of feeling like an imposter, saying that, as an artist, what is my process, came. But again, I had to remind myself, be it till you become it. And one of the things that it helped me was to actually think about what is my process. So if I have to tell you in a very, very simple way, it's a very three-step simple process. My first thing is inspiration, and I will take you through examples to help you through this. Obviously, the first thing for me in art is something that inspires me. The second thing is the ideation phase, which is the visual imagery of that inspiration, which is my idea. And the third, obviously, is the execution. But in my mind, execution is the last part. Obviously, you have to hone your skill, you have to develop your skill, and you have to have that skill to be able to execute. But to me, the most important is the first part of it. And therefore, which is the most important for me? It's inspiration. And inspiration is something that there are a lot of times, they say, oh, artist needs to be inspired. The point is, yes, the artist needs to be inspired, but as working artists, we also need to keep looking out for inspiration, or putting ourselves in situations which inspire us. Because I can't sit and say, oh, when inspiration strikes, I will paint. That's not going to happen, because then I'm not a working artist. Then I'm a hobbyist. I'm just sitting at home, or when I feel like it, I paint. No. So I'm at a stage where I am exhibiting constantly. Therefore, I have to look for inspirations. And to me, there are two parts to it. There's an internal inspiration and there's external inspiration. Now, if you just look at the internal inspiration, what is it? One is things like thoughts. A thought can inspire uh, an artwork or an idea. Interactions with people, interactions on Zoom, experiences can be emotional, it can be physical. All these things can be taken as inspirations. Now if you look at the external one, it's like external could be visual cue, a landscape. Some landscape can inspire you, travel can inspire you, sounds can inspire you.
Can you mute Devanshi? Can you mute everyone who's not speaking, please? Guys, you have to mute yourself. Sorry about that, Anjali.
That's okay. We were just talking about sounds inspiring. Or even a pandemic like COVID can inspire you. So again, I will talk about this a little bit more, but and an interaction of those two. So for example, a visual cue or a landscape or an interaction with somebody during your travel could inspire you. So again, these are things which are out there. A lot of times I get asked, oh, what do you do for inspiration? And honestly, a lot of times I actually go out, say for a walk, or I will go somewhere, or I'll go for an exhibition, or I'll go meet people, or I'll go for a workshop. All these things can lead to any inspiration, and you don't know what would inspire you, so I can't predict that, but anything can inspire. So let's look at some examples, and I'm going to talk about what inspired me and therefore what was the work that came out of it. So what the first example I'm looking at is a visual cue. And this is something which I've physically seen, a visual cue, something that I saw. And the story is about this leaf that you see over here. And let me just tell you what inspired me. So this is in 2018. I had just moved to London, and it was autumn, my first autumn in London. And I was walking one morning, and I saw this leaf on the floor. Now it's a special leaf. It's called the ginkgo tree, and I had only seen it before in Korea. And the leaf has this fan shape, you know, and it when it's autumn, it changes color from this green, pure green, to a pure yellow, and it falls, and therefore it feels like you're walking on a carpet of yellow leaves. And I absolutely love this leaf, and I had seen it only in Korea the last that I was there. And for me, it brought back so many memories of a place that I had lived in, all the associated emotions of being in that place. And suddenly it also struck me that nature remains constant with me. So I have moved a lot, and that's, maybe I should have said that before. I have moved a few countries. I have lived in a few countries. So for me, constantly there is change, and that also acts as an inspiration for my art. But this moment when I saw that visual cue of that leaf, it made me feel like that means nature is always with me, and therefore this leaf has brought back these memories. And I came back home, and I worked for a continuous week, I think, and I created, I think, about 8 pieces of work, which was this. And this was just a sort of a this whole idea, the visual imagery of showing autumn. So if you look at the images, the leaves are falling down. The leaves are all ginkgo leaves. I have used this paper, special paper that I have from Korea. I've used that in this because, again, it reminded me of Korea, and I wanted to use that. So this was the result of that one leaf which inspired me. Now, Ashu, it does say meeting remaining time is 9 minutes. I'm not sure if that's... You're on mute.
I'm not sure. It shouldn't be happening, but I'll just figure it out. Go ahead. You complete your...
Okay. Okay. So,
Even if we log out, Anjali, we'll all log back in. We have the link, we can log
the
back in
same one.
case there is a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
That goes for all the students as well. You can log in from the direct Zoom link that is on your WhatsApp. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So the second inspiration is is a little more serious. It was an emotional experience that I went through, which was 2 years ago now. And this was about my sister. She had a baby, and everything was great till we figured out that the baby had a heart condition, and the child had to go through two surgeries. And it was one of those things that we never think about or we never talk about. Everybody knows we have a heart, everybody knows it's the most important part of our body, but we never really give it much thought unless something happens. And this was a very, very emotional time for us. And even that can inspire. So it inspired me to stop and really think about the heart as an organ. And I didn't want to visually show it as how we all know, that heart shape. I wanted to show it as is. And Ashu will understand, because being from a medical profession before, she would know that I wanted to actually show the reality of the organ so that people stop and actually think about it. And because my niece came out fine and now she's well, one of the things that came out was that I felt so much gratitude in general, and even for my own heart, feeling that yes, we're healthy and this is the reason I'm alive. So I came up with a whole series which was called The Heart Full of Gratitude. So again, visually, it's a heart. Because I want people to stop and look at it. Second is I looked at patterns to tell the story, to say that, our heart is filled with so many emotions, and we keep it all there, whether it's anger, love, happiness, and therefore these different patterns showcase those emotions. And the third one, the one which you can see a few hearts which are connected, was an extension of the series, where I started thinking that if I go out in the world with a heart full of gratitude or happiness, I will attract people who are also the same way. And that was the inspiration for that one, saying that, if you go out with gratitude, you will get back gratitude and you will get back love. So those were connected hearts full of gratitude. That was the series. The next one is a physical sensation. I mean, it could be anything from emotional, physical, anything. In this case, it was I do yoga, and I've been doing yoga for a few years now. And uh, one of the things that I felt one day while practicing was, I felt that my body was blossoming or blooming like a lotus. I'm sure it didn't look as graceful, but I just felt it. It was a feeling that I had, that, just the way a lotus blooms, I felt the same way. The extension, if there are some people who do yoga, they might understand what I'm saying, that you feel like you're extending your body or you're opening your body. And that was what the physical sensation was. And I thought that, is there a way, the visual idea of that was, is there a way I can show yoga and I can show lotus flower and mix the two together and see how that looks? So this was the result of that thought. This was the artwork, which it was called Bloom with Yoga. And the whole concept is that when you do yoga, this is the feeling that I feel. And therefore, as a viewer, I want you to feel that same feeling. And a lot of times I get feedback, people who do yoga get it immediately. People who don't necessarily do yoga are generally like, can you tell us the thought behind it? So it's interesting to see people's reaction on this one. The last one is pandemic. And who would have thought that would also inspire? But this is something that I did when the pandemic was happening and there was lockdown. Even in London, we were at home and we couldn't go out anywhere. And initially, it was very, very strange because all of us were feeling extremely low, and there was this strange energy. Even the creative people were just, I was not feeling any creativity. And I think that was the initial few weeks. And then it suddenly changed to this feeling of, it's all right, life goes on, we'll get through this. And the whole feeling was a line that I read, which was saying that even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. So that feeling of hope that even this will go and there will be better times. So this was a result of that thought in my mind, and I wanted to visually show it, that there is hope and there is life after um, this experience that all of us are going through. So that was all from me, and I can finish here and take any questions if there are. Let's take the example of the visual cue inspiration of the autumn leaf, and I'll take that in the next stage and then talk about the next stage. So the inspiration, of course, was the leaf, and the second stage is the idea stage, which is the visual imagery that I had in my mind on how will I actually portray that inspiration on paper. So the second level is therefore the idea, and in this case I think the idea was to be able to showcase a little. Obviously the basic element in that is the leaf has to be there, because that's what inspired me. So one is the leaf has to be there. On top of that, I wanted to showcase the feeling of my memories associated with Korea, and therefore the idea was to somehow incorporate something from Korea in there, and that's why I said I used paper from Korea. That was a part of the art. And on top of that, the autumn colors were used again to show that it was autumn. Otherwise, the leaf could have been in any background, and you wouldn't have had the sense of that this happened on in autumn, for example. And the other was to, for example, to be able to show the leaves falling. That is also an execution or an idea of it was autumn. And then is the third phase, which is the execution phase, which is the actual work which you do, and that I think is difficult to describe, because it's more a matter of just get down to it, and you sit with your paints and your paper and you just create, physically finally create the work that you have imagined.
Great. Thank you, Anjali. I hope, Mukul, that answered your question.
Yeah, I hope so. If not, you can ask again.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Vandana this side. I think I have some issues with my camera, so sorry for that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So my question for you is that, have you ever discouraged, I mean, someone criticized you for your creativity because you cannot, wow every people, and there is someone who will put out the flaws in us. So if you have, then how did it affect your creativity?
So thank you. That's actually a very important question, and I must tell you that we're talking. I come back to Instagram because it's such a part of our lives, especially nowadays with the lockdown and everything. Everybody talks about the positive. You're seeing only positives. Even today, you've spoken to me, you heard me say only positives. But behind all this is a lot of struggle and a lot of rejections. So I have got criticism. In fact, I have spoken with Ashu a bit about this in the beginning. When I moved from the corporate world to the creative world, I got criticism not only about the fact that do I know enough, but also about the fact that like ye kya kar rahi ho, ye kya karne ki baat hai. And then the next step is, oh, but do you even know in enough? Your work is not good enough. Are you sure you can compete with the other artists there? There is a lot of criticism. There is a lot of rejection. I have applied to a lot of exhibitions or contests where you put in given your art and they select the artists. There have been a lot of rejection. In fact, recently I got a rejection. It's a part of life. It's a part of growing up. It's a part of being able to deal. It's just like how we teach children. There's happiness and sadness. There is acceptance and rejection. It's as simple as that. It affects me. I will not say it doesn't affect me, but you just have to brace yourself and get on with it, because it's a part of life. That's how things are. So people have said I'm not creative enough, but I had to believe in myself to say that I am unique. This is my style, this is my work. Some people will like it, some people will not like it, and that's fair. I think to expect everybody to like it is also not right, because there are a lot of people out there who will look at Hussein and say, ye to, there's nothing, this is, what is this about? So it's it's your choice, and creativity is such a personal thing. Somebody's creativity may look like rubbish to you, and somebody's creativity will look like amazing to you. So I think, don't fear the negative. It will come. You just have to brace it, accept it.
Okay.
Thank you so
I
much,
can
ma'am.
see another question on the chat just about the same thing. How do you deal with negativity and
Negativity,
fear?
yes, and fear.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I hope I answered that, because you just have to uh, get on with it, and just like brush yourself and say it's okay. You have also got positive feedback. Negative will come, and just feed off the positive. So if there are people in your life who are encouraging you, spend more time with them, for example. you know Reach out to them. So I have my set of friends who I reach out to every time there is a rejection in my life. I will always go to them, for example, and which is fine. All of us have that, and we will face that. In your jobs you will face that. So we just have to know who to go to and who to get that positive vibe from.
So actually, we had talked about this in context of, in our class, a model of creativity called the systems model, where they say that there is a domain where you're being creative, and then there's the individual who's the artist or the creator, and there's something called as the field, which is the gatekeepers or the critics or your audiences,
Yeah.
and all three are equally important. So
Yeah.
yes, in a very personal sense, also we might feel that rejection and all, but for art to really become art, critics are important. That feedback is really important.
Yeah.
And I believe that learning through that process is important, because only then, when you that is why they're called the gatekeepers, because you have to pass through that gate. So it may happen at a very very personal level to you, like you were saying, that people talk and say, are you good enough, are you not? But then you have to, like you said, keep building upon it and go past that gate, and where your work gets acknowledged as art. Because initially, uh, like I said, everybody who draws cannot be an artist. You become an artist through that whole process of learning, through a whole process of iterating, through a whole process of understanding where your creativity is coming from and how you can build upon it, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I think critics is an important part of it in
Yeah.
that sense.
Yes.
But criticism per se, I think that is, I think, generic to life in general, and creativity in particular. You have to be sensitive to create, and you have to be thick skinned to just not care about rejection, I feel. And
Which is a good point, actually, because there are some critics who are doing it for your benefit. So there is benefit out of that negativity also. So
yeah,
it might push you to work harder, it might push you to do something better.
yeah,
So it can be both ways. But if it is putting you down, then ignore it. If it helps you improve yourself, then obviously take that into consideration.
absolutely. So Mukul is again asking a question, saying how to maintain this consistency in skills to reach that level. So you talked about how you learned in every country that you went to. Mute yourself, please. Somebody's Devanshi, can you help? Okay. So what is tell us a little bit about that learning that you did, and how you honed those skills to reach that level, uh, where you now feel that you don't have to think twice before saying I'm an artist, and you're proud of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I think it's obviously it's a journey, and it is you have to continuously be at it. So even now that I'm talking to you and I'm saying, and I'm an artist, I'm still doing courses, I'm still learning. I attend workshops regularly, I go for exhibitions. uh, in fact, every time I'm attending a course, people are like, oh, are you taking it? I said, no, I'm not teaching. I'm learning, because I think there is always room for improvement. So it's still a process. And what it does is it helps me, it opens your mind to newer things. And that's how your creative mind keeps coming up with new and new ideas. I can't sit back and say, that's it, I've done, I've achieved. It's not like that. Because for me to keep working, keep improving, I need to, for example, a big one for me is digital art, which was something I completely stayed away from. And it was one of those things that, I just kept telling myself that, oh, my creativity will not come out in digital art. But the lockdown helped, because I couldn't physically go for classes. There was no choice. I couldn't get supplies. There was a difficulty in getting supplies. So I started doing digital art. So you have to continuously just keep adapting, and also keep on improving yourself. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to ask a question, like in the sense of consistency, I think it's about just constantly learning, because it will come. You will keep improving, and the more you learn, the more it'll be a part of your being.
Yeah. So
So yeah.
Hasina is asking Anjali, what is important in terms of inspiration? More important for you, the external or the internal? Because she says emotional experiences, I feel they contribute more towards inspiration. Do you feel that too, or is it equally important?
No,
Or
frankly, for me, I think it's both. Like I said, imagine a leaf inspired me to draw
Mhm.
for like a week. I did not stop. So imagine how inspired I must have felt to just keep creating. So for me, I don't think it's anything like that. The thought behind it might be deeper. For example, the whole experience with my niece left a more impact on me emotionally, uh, and therefore that might come across in a lot more work. So I might have more extensions of that work, or I might incorporate that emotion in other works. But in terms of at that time, the inspiration, it could be anything. Frankly, it could be inanimate object to a person, to
great.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So they say something about creativity. They say that, you get this inspiration from the outside, then you take it inside, and then you mix it with what you are feeling, and what you
Yeah.
produce includes a part of you when it goes out into the world. So you take from the world, but what you give back is what you have taken plus you. So
Yes.
that is creativity. That is the personal context that you create, and that is what you are from the inside, or your internal inspiration that goes into. So that is why creativity is such a beautiful process, because you're giving a part of yourselves to the world. What you think, how you feel, how you experienced a certain thing. So I think that is very, very important.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Let me check the chat. um, how, in the beginning of your career, how did you enter the field? Did you go exhibit your work in the art gallery, or how did you showcase it?
So this is, I think, in the beginning of my career, I got an exhibition, which I did in fact, it was the Indian Cultural Center in Bangkok. It was
Mhm.
not an art gallery, but they had a gallery within their campus where I showed. But what I think, and that might be from my management background, I was open to anything. I did not have any hang-ups that as an artist, I only need to show in an art gallery, or I only need to show in a specific type of a gallery. It was, if I can show, I will. So that was and I think that probably came from that feeling of, that in the MBA you are taught just take the opportunity, or in marketing you're like, oh, market yourself. And that's where I took it, because I had no gumption of, or hang-ups of, this is not such a good gallery, or I want to be with the right artists or other peer groups, because I didn't know better. So I think that helped me, because I just showed everywhere. So it was not as if I chose specific places to show.
Yeah. So in the beginning, in the first session, there was a chat question which had come, which was like a private question saying, I am an artist. I don't remember who the person was. So I would request her to unmute herself. and asked this question herself. But she said, I want to become an artist. And what can I do? So if you're here and if you can
I've
unmute
taken one
yourself,
student away.
I'll gladly give a student away in the name of creativity. So, who was that? Uh, if you want to unmute yourself, or if you're feeling shy, then maybe Anjali, you can just tell them, how to follow their heart.
uh, so, well, I mean, as my presentation was about that journey, so I suppose I'm hoping you got inspired enough to take it on. But it's really, start believing in yourself. And like I said, that for me, it was a believing, and second, then doing something about it. Because a lot of times we say that, oh, yes, I have an idea, I have an idea, and we sit on it. But nobody else knows it unless you do it. So the whole idea is to really just go out there and show your work. If you think you are an artist, you want to be an artist, show your work, participate in places where you can show your work. uh, Put it on Insta, show it to your friends, send it to family, ask them to forward it ahead. Anybody and everybody can be a potential customer, and you can eventually get feedback from people which you can choose to take, choose to not take. That depends on you. But the idea is to just go for it. You cannot it's not going to help you just to say I want to do it, and I I mean, I'm not sure. Just go ahead and do it. Just start showing your work. That's the only way of doing it, according to me. That's what I did. I mean, I just started showing my work everywhere that I could.
Okay. So Devanshi is asking, do you now wish to join the corporate world again with your art? Do both the things together, maybe?
I don't think I'd ever want to go back. I mean, if I get an opportunity to talk about my art in the corporate setup, yes, gladly. I do it in a heartbeat. But join a corporate regular 9 to 5 job, I don't think I can do it anymore. I have my own studio in my house. I work from home. I have my own hours. It's very difficult to move away from that and go back to a full-time job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that. Uh, uh, I had a question, Anjali. Now, they say just creativity begets creativity. One thing leads to another. And sometimes when you like being creative, you kind of explore different fields. So if you're like uh, an artist, you would, want to, dabble in something else, maybe go into something related to music, or maybe you like to photograph. Is that
Yeah.
a case with you? Do you be creative in something else besides art that you do?
So I think for me, it's uh, I love music. So yes, there is music involved. I used to learn how to sing. I've stopped now, but I used to learn
Great. Wow.
um, ages back. So
How come
haven't
I never heard
pursued
you
it
sing in ISP?
because because it was ages back. I don't think I'll ever sing in public. But and then I think for me, it's in pretty much everything I do. I suppose for the way I will keep my house, you have creativity in there. The way you, I suppose, I have a child now, so the way I interact with him, what I do with him. So there is a lot of creativity in everything, yes. And um, I don't know if I'm specifically pursuing it or it just comes naturally because it's just so much a part of my life.
So what we have also, emphasized when we started learning creativity, that why do we learn or want to learn how to be creative, is that creativity is such a you know good source of happiness, such a lasting source of happiness, that once you start being creative in anything, you will probably start exploring creativity in everything. That's how we see it. So I think we are running out of time as well, Anjali, but there's one last question from Ayushi, who says, why does it happen when we are very sad that we get inspired more? Is that the case? Really?
Actually, I don't think so.
Mhm.
It could also be happiness. It could be I had, in fact, another example which was about interaction. It could be just an interaction with somebody that had inspired you.
Mm.
I don't think it's really about sadness. I think what it does is you do tend to sit back and mull over it, and therefore, like writers write or poets write when they're sad, or but I don't think it's anything like that I'm more inspired by sadness. In fact, I'd happily not to be inspired by sadness and go through that. I'd rather be inspired by happy things. So for me, thankfully, that's not the case.
So there are studies actually, Anjali, which show that you are more productively creative when you're happy.
Yeah.
Versus, so there's a myth of the sad artist,
Yes.
that Gamgeen Shire or whatever you call it. But that is actually, they have debunked the myth and said that doesn't happen, and you are more creative when you're in a happier mood. So that's also one area of interest for me, mood and creativity.
Yeah. I think it's a bit of a circle, because
yeah.
you're happy and then you create and you create and you're happy.
Happy, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
it's, yeah, for me, when I create, it's my moment of complete mindfulness and complete happipiness.
Yeah. So you don't really know whether you were happy and then you created, or you created and then you're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we don't have any more questions left on the chat. And I think if still somebody has a question, this is your last chance to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll let Anjali go. And just giving 1 minute for anybody to unmute and ask a question, or are we good? I think everybody's done.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Anjali. This was really,
Most
really
welcome.
amazing. And we had a lovely time listening to you. And what a fresh perspective we brought into the class. We'll be talking about this interaction a lot in our class. And when I'll be talking more about creativity and other techniques, because you gave us a lot of food for thought today. And thank you so much. We hope to see more of you at Shoolini, and we'll have more platforms where you can talk about your art. You've told me you do a lot of work in the area of mental health, where art helps mental health. So we hope that you can talk to us about that someday on some platform. But we'll let you go for now, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I'm much gratitude to everybody. Thank you for listening to me for so long. So thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure. And thanks, everyone. And I'll see you in class next Wednesday. And Anjali, I hope to see you soon.
Yes.
Maybe face to face, hopefully.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Right.
Okay, bye bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks.